when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club by DLC.
Hello there, book clubbers. Welcome back. Oh my goodness. I hope you're dancing. It has been a real intense week for me. Having lived in Los Angeles for 20 years, my heart is going out to all the people suffering through the horrendous fires there. So, a lot of distraction this week. As the song says, when the world is too dark place to be, it's nice to escape. And I'm happy to be escaping with you, Lana Bashinsky. How are you?
All things considered, I'm safe. I'm safe, and I feel like that's a lot. That's a lot to say on almost any day these days.
It is.
Can't stop watching the news. Happy to take a breather here. Happy to take a breather this week and have some time to read and pour myself into this other world. Not that stopped me from bawling my eyes out this week.
Yes, and my goodness, these two chapters that we're going to talk about today. We are in Reaper's Gale, chapters 22 and 23. I feel like this. Obviously, this novel is crescendoing. We are getting to this incredible finale. We have one more chapter to go next week, but I feel like this is where most books would end. I mean, it's this amazing culmination of everything we've got to. So we have tons to talk about. And again, like you said, he got us. He got us again. I was a mess, just an absolute mess of emotion reading this. And we'll get to all that. But we like to start with a non-spoiler topic. And I know, Lana, you have one that I think is pretty interesting.
I do. So this was very much inspired by my holidays this year, in where my family did a books-only gift exchange. And I drew the name of my sister-in-law, who my brother would describe as allergic to sci-fi and fantasy. And so I was going through my brain back catalog of what can I recommend, and realizing I pretty much only read sci-fi and fantasy. So my non-spoiler topic today is, what do you have strategies or particular go-to books that you recommend that are not sci-fi and fantasy that you love, that you would give to somebody who is quote unquote allergic to the genres?
Yeah, well, I mean, my wife is not somebody that loves genre storytelling. She loves reading, and we both enjoy, sharing books back and forth, but she is not down for the sci-fi fantasy stuff. So what I actually did when you asked me this question during the holidays was I consulted her and said, hey, what books would you recommend? And she's got a bunch of books that she's been reading lately that she's really enjoyed. The Women is one. Horse by Geraldine Brooks was another that I mentioned to you. She has a number that she's been really into lately that are non-sci-fi. But I thought that what you were asking was, what sci-fi book or fantasy book
so that was
would
the
you
other
recommend?
side.
Yeah.
So the other side of it is there like a toe dipped in the water that you think is something that could bring somebody in and show them the light?
Gateway books. Yeah. And I think it's a different proposition now than when I was younger, because fantasy is so ingrained in our culture in a way that it wasn't when I was growing up at all.
Yeah.
It really was this niche subculture, and that was really looked down on upon by people. And I think, Harry Potter being such a big part of mainstream culture, and then Game of Thrones being such a big part of mainstream culture, really has changed that. And people are so much more open to genre storytelling than they ever were before. But so and I tend to be the kind of person that's like, getting a person to read a book at all is unfortunately a challenge sometimes.
Yeah.
And So I try not to force people to read stuff outside their wheelhouse. I want them to love the process of reading in and of itself. But if you already have a reader and they're like, I'll give it a shot. I think one of the books that I think is just a win, no matter if you like sci-fi or not, is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like
Yeah.
it's just so much fun. And the ideas are so wild and zany and silly. And I don't know. I find that success, it's case by case, right? Person by person. One I read recently, I think we talked about on the show, that I think would work because it is definitely sci-fi, but just sort of doesn't present as sci-fi. I keep saying sci-fi. I mean fantasy. It doesn't present as a genre book. Is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke.
Yeah.
Which I think just feels like this intimate character tale, and it is absolutely fantastical. It takes place in a fantasy world, and I think is beautifully written and might be one of those kind of gateway books. What is your strategy?
Well, I'll tell you the strategy that's my normal strategy, and then I'll tell you what I ended up with this year. So I kind of go one of two ways. Something that is like very light touch fantasy. I haven't read a ton of that. With sci-fi, I think like at the end of the day, like great characters are what make great books. And if
Yeah.
somebody really can't see through, like they said the word ship, as in spaceship, I'm kind of like, well, that's a you problem.
Yeah.
I honestly really like kind of going. I don't know if I'd call it a toe dip so much as like an intense submersion recommending Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
Oh yeah.
Because it is
That's intense.
but it is about the characters of the book.
Right.
And you see like their lives and they're talking on this ship and then there's like some surreal things that happen. But if you're not reading a book where sometimes surreal things happen, oh, I guess you're just reading stories about people. Come on. But I think
Yeah.
this is a story about people with some fantastical elements to it and their lives and relationships and interesting, strange things that happen to them. And so I really, really like that one.
I think I love Hyperion, and I think that's a great book to recommend. I'll just push back on you a little bit because I think sometimes the thing that people don't like about genre, fantasy and sci-fi is the sentences that are like
the jargon.
Brockalox
Yes.
rotated their snorflingles, and it's like, what am I even reading? And I think Hyperion is that in spades.
Well, that's sort of like, do you really like? How much do you really not like it? They're like, yeah, okay. That's the one thing that the one word that comes to mind that I think about is like, if somebody who doesn't like sci-fi reads the word cyberpuke, are they gonna cyberpuke? Like that's kind
Right.
of where I'm at. But honestly, when I'm recommending things that are not, I feel like I don't come up with anything. I feel like everything I read is like pretty fantasy-ish. So even having this conversation is like a silly non-spoiler topic because being like, I didn't come up with a solution is my answer.
Well, maybe our audience will.
Yes, that would be great. So what I actually ended up doing is, or what I have done in the past is like a cookbook. Something that's for them to do. But in this case, this year, I went with like a beautiful and readable sort of children's book classic with amazing art. It's one of the Moomin books called Who Will Comfort Toffel by Tove Jansson. And oh gosh, I just got her name wrong. I'm sure I did. Anyway, Who Will Comfort Toffel, the most incredible art. It is so beautiful. And it's just like wherever you put it, it's like a coffee table book, but it's also like a readable children's novel. So somebody who's got kids, it's something that they can do with their kids together and also enjoy themselves, which I did give to my sister-in-law. But this year, hilariously, both of us must have been stumped because both of us gave each other a book that we cut the pages out of the middle and put something else inside the book.
Oh, hilarious.
So we did no books at all. So I got her a bottle of whiskey. And then behind that, I also gave her the audiobook of Sabriel, which is a very fantasy novel. But the audiobook is so incredible that it's like Tim Curry reading you a story. I feel like you can't not listen. So that's what I did. And she gave me a cookbook wrapped inside some other French novel.
Well, we would love to hear your solutions if you have folks in your life that are allergic to fantasy or sci-fi, and how you try to maybe introduce them to some of the stuff that you love. I think that's a interesting conundrum to solve. So I'm sure folks have better solutions than we do. And if you have other ideas for topics to start our show, please don't hesitate to send them in. dlcfeedback@gmail.com is the best place to do that. You can also post in our Discord, which is 5x5 DLC on Discord, or as a comment on our YouTube videos. All right, we got so much to get to with chapters 22 and 23, so let's do it. Spoilers starting now for Reaper's Gale. Chapters 22 starts with the ramp up to this final battle. And I love how it starts with this this new character, this bodyguard who has been assigned to protect Brolhandar. It's actually Bivat's bodyguard that she is assigned to protect Brolhandar, and he's just an everyday working stiff, just like going. I gotta stay up, wait for the assassins to show up, and oh, there they are. All right, better dispose of them before Brolhandar wakes up, and oh, now I killed him. What am I going to do with the body? All right, I guess I just got to hang on to the body until morning when there's a giant battle. So there'll be bodies everywhere, and nobody will notice another one.
I'll put it in my tent until then. It's going to be hot. It's going to be stinky, but all in a day's work.
I love this guy.
I'll punch out at the end of the day. He's just just a competent dude.
Just a competent bodyguard, just doing his job. And he's like, sucks that tomorrow's a giant battle and I really should have gotten more sleep, but that's the job,
That's
the job.
It's so good. And as with so many scenes in this book, I can picture it so vividly of he set his tent super close to the enemy camp. So they're like, this guy thinks he's the guard. Then cuts a little slice out of the back of it, walks over and just watches from the sidelines. So somebody sneaking up to Brolhandar's tent again, or he goes and peeks inside. And the description of it's so grainy darkness, and he can't see Brolhandar's face, and that's how he knows there's a shadow above him. And then the quiet scuffle, and the way he's okay, I've got my dagger that I'm trying not to let clink on the ground, but I'm also catching this body, and then hoisting over his shoulders and doing a crouch knee shuffle out the door again. I can picture it so. Every action is so vivid in my mind of this scene. And then him getting to the edge of the woods or whatever and being it's crazy how they keep sending these guys. And then, they haven't caught on, or whatever he's sort of thinking about. And then two other dudes show up and he's like, oh, they did catch on.
Yeah.
That's all right. He just is corpse, and throws one at somebody, kills the other guy, dispatches of them. And he's like, it's going to be a full tent. That's his whole thought about it. It's so excellent, handily done. Just love it. Just love it.
It reminded me of me, being the tooth fairy to my children, and don't want them to wake up. Just gotta stay real quick. Oh, is he awake? No, it's that. Except I'm dispatching an assassin. If the tooth fairy was trying to murder my children, maybe that's the appropriate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sure.
No, it reminds me of that thing. It's just adorable that he's doing this violence, and it's this super high stakes thing, but he's just I don't want him to wake up. And then the next scene is so great. We just cut to Brolhandar what a lovely rest that was. He's
honestly, best sleep I've had in ages. It's crazy.
Oh, wow, what a day. What a morning. We're going to go out there and just have some war. But I'm so glad I got some real deep REM. You know what I'm talking about? It's just so great. And then there's just this guy there, and he's like, oh, hey, guy, what are you doing? He's like, did you sleep okay?
Excellent.
It's so good. So good. Yeah. And then we had this little moment where Brolhandar is like, oh, this battle is going to be crazy. I don't think they're not going to be able to stand on their mud surface for very long. We're going to be able to kill them easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Mm-hmm. The comedy throughout these chapters is so sharp.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
I just love it. I just love it. So many
Yeah.
small beats, perfectly comedic, moving right into the war.
Yeah, the end of the scene where the bodyguard like whispers to Bevat, but we're in Brolhandar's POV, and he's like,
hmm
wonder what that guy's saying to her. And then her eyes are like super wide. Like, it's so great. It's like, you could just imagine her being like, you killed how many? how, many how many assassins were there? Yeah. And sucks for like assassin number one, who's literally just the decoy assassin
I
to
know.
draw the bodyguard out of his hiding place. So the other two assassins can try to kill the bodyguard.
First assassin being like, wait, so you said what happened to the 9 other guys? And like, no. They're on errands. They're fine. Get in there. You got this, Steve.
They'll be back tomorrow. Yeah, that's a real short straw situation. Like the 3 guys like, all right, one of you is gonna
go to certain death.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, then we pop over to Talk, who's he's in charge of protecting the children, and he is also not confident that Red Mask's plan is going to work. He's like, oh, this formation is going to fall apart. The mud's going to suck. And Torment's in the corner being like, no, you suck.
Yeah,
You're the one that sucks. And Talk's just like, man, chill. Seriously.
He's like, you think I care if you think I suck? Man.
I just imagine him like constantly in the background, like, I hate you, just so you know.
Exactly. Or like anytime being like, I'm not really sure if this is like a smart plan. Being like, you're not a smart plan.
Yeah.
Rat.
No.
She's like a total frat jerk.
So great. So great. But he's like, hey, do you ever wonder why this dude even gets Kachin Jamali to follow him? He's like, shut up. Shut up. He's like, you are, and he does that awesome analogy of like, hey, his horse like blindly follows him. He's like, yeah, so that's what horses do. And he's like, you're like the horse.
Yeah.
You're the horse. So I hate you.
He's like, he's chosen, okay? He's chosen. They chose him.
Yeah.
You don't argue with chosen, bro. I gotta go get
then we have
on.
a number of scenes that are sort of bopping around as everybody getting ready for the big battle. We have a few of the heavies getting ready, suiting up, kind of talking about Fenner and being like, Fenner's cult. I think Gessler and Stormy betrayed Fenner's cult. They should die. It's kind of interesting. Just kind of feels like texture, little, other perspectives on some of our bigger characters from small characters.
And it's interesting. I feel like going into battle and there's like, it's like little threads appear of being like, remember this? It's like, oh, it's okay. This is going to be interesting. It felt like premonitions of things from the past.
Yeah.
Will come forward. But I guess the heavies, they were like praising Fenner, but then Fenner fell out of goddom or whatever it was. And so, but why? I don't understand why Stormy and Gessler were blamed for that. I guess they used to also follow Fenner, but then they got, bathed in fire and were ascended, and therefore that's a betrayal.
That's my take as well.
Okay.
I don't, because I recall when we first met them, whenever that was, book 2 or 3, whatever it was, they were all about Fenner.
Because didn't they sass Heberick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sassed Heberick because he was the fallen Fenner priest.
Yes.
Right.
But then they got bathed in fire. I love being like this thing that happened against their will. Honestly, betrayal. Total
betrayal. Yeah. These guys. It's their fault, really. And one of them says it's not their fault, but yeah. Draw Fist, I think is her name. Anyway, so
Draw First.
Draw First. Yeah, sorry. Draw
there's
Fist.
A story, baby. There's a story.
Right. And then we head over to Feridan Sort and Beak, and they're reporting to Keneb. Beak is like, hey, I sense other mages, Bottle and Nep Furrow and these, Mulvin Dreader, these other mages. I kind of see what they're up to. They're powerful.
I mean,
Eh,
Beak just going through and systematically being like, here is the complete list of the biggest, basically the biggest threats that are
yeah,
before us. It's like, again, sort of extreme competence. We know who Beak
yes,
is, but like, it just so burns me when it's like the next scene, Fiddler's like that brainless mage. And it's like,
yeah,
he's clearly killing it. Ugh.
right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, he totally nails Gessler and Stormy. He's like, oh, by the way, they were reforged in the fires of Talon, and everybody's like, what? What? Yeah,
I like that he's kind of yeah.
yeah,
I know.
yeah. And then they kind of stroll by these all these pits where there's a bunch of dead Tisti-Dur, and Beak is like, yeah, there's thousands of these bodies here, and there's going to be even more by the time that Tavor's fleet gets here. It's kind of, it's all just building up, ominous, raising the stakes for what's about to come.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a scene where Bottle is like, I hate owls. And hey, I may be reading into this, but I totally took that as a swipe against Harry Potter. I was like, I
That's
feel like
so
this is
funny.
Erikson like poking at Harry Potter a little bit. It's like, no, owls are dumb. They're stupid animals. Stop.
That's
Stop
really
with your
funny.
owl fetishization. I'm probably wrong on that point, but that's how it landed on me.
I love that.
yeah.
A solid read. It's a solid read.
But it's hilarious where he's like, they don't ever look where you want them to look. All I want is to like scope out the armies and see what's going on. This dumb owl is like wants to kill a mouse.
And it's also so much of like the way in which Bottle talks about it is so cavalier. And he's like, even when I squeeze its soul, it's like, it's such an ew, you're doing something pretty gross with those animals. It's like,
yeah.
I loved that it's sort of like this darkness of like what kind of magics he's actually using to control these beasts, and then being like, it's just so stupid. It's very funny.
Yeah. And then Nep Furrow like strolls up, and I love the way Nep Furrow talks. The weird. You really have to strain to understand how he talks.
I read that. I can't not. It's so hilariously phonetically written.
Yes.
That I couldn't help but be like, listen to this, and like say it out loud to Jeff, who immediately said, I cannot bear hearing you speak that way any longer.
It's like deep Cajun almost, it's like very funny. And basically he says, he kind of gives this ominous thing of like Fiddler's instrument isn't done. The Tano spirit song isn't done, but Bottle, you're all used up. A lot of like, this strain on the mages reinforced here as well.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was like the Tano spirit song that wasn't done, or if like Fiddler's song where he like sang all the names of the dead people wasn't done. That
interesting.
I
That's how
couldn't
you
tell
read it?
which one it was, but saying it was Fiddler's song, I guess the Tano song was like Fiddler's interaction as well. But something about it made me think it was sort of threatening. He was like, we're all dead. Like Fiddler's song isn't over.
Right.
To me sounded like he's going to be singing the names of all the dead people.
He's going to add more names to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That may be the right reading. Then Keneb like calls all of the sergeants up and is like, hey, I'm going to give you a pep talk. Everybody get ready. We got some serious warring to do tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some doubts. Gessler's like, hey, we can do like 2-on-1, 4-on-1 even, but it's going to be like 10-on-1. They got a lot of other
baddies.
Yeah, a lot of army out there for us to fight. And Fiddler gets mad at Beak, and Captain Faradan Sort stands up for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Beak is like, hey, these are all my friends. Friends are the most important thing in the world. And Fiddler like looks away, and I was like, oh my God, I can see the foreshadowing. I know this is going to be bad. I know this is going to be bad. I had no idea how bad.
I was like, what? Oh, yes. Exactly how bad. Yeah. Even having you text me several days in advance being like, I'm a mess. I was like, we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So so then we have this hilarious moment where we check in with Korab, and he's just like amassing weapons. I'm gonna need all this. I'm gonna need that, and it's that scene from The Jerk. Have you seen The Jerk where Steve Martin's like, "This, I'm leaving, but I'm taking this and this ashtray and this chair, and that's all I need."
I love it, and like him picturing himself as like this ultimate badass with all of this stuff, and then whoever it is being like, "You gotta discard some of these weapons, bro. These all
They're
of
like
the handles
my
are
face."
Thinking about them marching and how like jangly. It's like so funny.
Well, the list of how many he's carrying is
absurd.
Ridiculous. Yes, absurd. It's like every video game character who has an infinite inventory. It's like, how is he even doing this?
Yeah, it's like so funny. You play Risk of Rain too.
Sure.
Everything you acquire is presented physically on your body in some way.
Yeah,
he looks like a late game.
It's totally what it is. And honestly, one of my very few criticism is the wrong word, but my very few bummers about this chapter. I think this is one of the great chapters in the entire series. One of the greatest chapters I've ever read of a book. Chapter 22. It's just incredible. One of my few, down things is that we don't check back in with Korab. Like, I thought that too. I wish we saw what he was doing with all those weapons and either it working out for him or being I wish we just saw.
I mean, we'll get there. We'll get there, but
I guess
maybe that's 24. He didn't need him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He didn't need them. But I wish we got back to his POV one more time. That's what I wish.
The POV of him being like, "Oh, shucks."
Yeah. Just dropping all of them or something. I don't know.
Maybe this chapter 24, the denouement is going to be lit.
All right. So then, checking with Hellion, who's still completely wasted and is like, "I'm not going to be Skull Death's queen, but I will be his one night stand."
I also love that it starts off with her like kind of sober, then she like takes a sip and then everything goes into focus. She's so the drunken master.
Totally. Total drunken master. Yeah, that's a great reference. Sirin Kanar is looking at the Malazans and is like, "There's not enough of these. They're outnumbered. We're gonna be we're gonna crush these guys.
That flow, baby.
Yeah, this is gonna be easy peasy." So then we move to back to Talk, who is checking out the mages, and we have this amazing, awesome moment where it's from Talk's perspective, but he's just sort of like seeing what Red Mask's plan is, and we see the two Kel hunters go under the mud and hide. Like, Red Mask knew where the best place to align the mages would be, and the Kachain Shamali go underneath the mud and like sit there, and I just see a scene like from Jurassic Park,
exactly,
with like eyes under the mud, just waiting, or Rex right above the mud.
So fascinating, because it made me be like, I guess Talk wasn't there he wasn't a part of the chain of dogs, was he? No, he was in like somewhere in. No,
he was busy being squished, right?
Yeah. He had gotten kicked through a warren.
Right. Oh, right.
So he was just gone for that book. But that was like the bridge burner strategy in a way of being like, we are all burying ourselves. And they walked over them and then they came and got them afterwards. Yeah. But
that was that turtle strat.
Yeah. My brain was like, I guess it was Talk's POV, like admiring his handiwork. But I was kind of like, but that's kind of like a bridge burner thing too. So maybe he advised.
That's a good point. Yeah, but I love that because they're reptiles, they can just like slither under the thing. Oh, and then so cool.
I pictured them either like slithering in while it was like mucky, or doing that like that little lizard shimmy to get all the way down in. But so cool, and then
incredible, and then of course coming up from underneath them and just slicing and dicing all the mages
instantly.
Incredible.
It's so funny because it is like by this eagle eye view, the Adur / Letheri have every advantage.
Yeah.
And then they've got these 2 dinosaurs that just mess it up. They just
Yeah.
can't. That's it. It's awesome.
It's awesome. And I love how Talk sees this and he's like, I guess the battle's starting. I guess this is it. I guess this is how it starts. Totally cool. And then we have this another awesome just flavor scene. And Erikson is so good at just giving you these little flavor moments that in another novel would be the fulcrum about which the entire plot rotates. But for him, it's just like a moment that is meaningful and gives another side to this multifaceted battle. Natarchus is like, yeah, Red Mask said, all I got to do is stay back here and run away. And if they come, we run and we take them out of the battle and all that's, but screw that. I'm not going to be no coward.
I want redemption.
Awesome. And it feels like one of those things that, like I said, in another novel would be the turning point of the battle.
Yeah.
But for this novel is it's just the chaos of war. It's just another thing that's happening that is another factor in the loss. But you just see that everybody has their own opinions and it's hard to control and you can't get everybody to do what you want and everybody's got their own agendas.
And the other thing I love about it, to like bump ahead. So they're like, screw that plan. We're coming in. We're not cowards. We want redemption. It immediately fails. It goes awry. Right. You think like, oh, maybe they do succeed because they shoot arrows and they get rid of the lancers so their horses don't immediately get skewered. But then like 1 second later, it doesn't work out. And then I think it's like the next scene after we cut away from that chaos. The next time we get to Atri Preta Bivat, she says something like, they are the Blue Rose Warriors. So they go in, they crash through these front lines. They're like, the horses would stop at a line of spears. You couldn't get a horse to run it themselves into a line of lances. But if you shoot like arrows down, you can get them all. You can get them to run into people. And so they have the horses charge super deep into this army that immediately just kind of surrounds them and starts chopping them down. And then the Blue Rose Warriors sort of mount up and charge at them and sort of trample them as well. And their whole original job was to get the Blue Rose distracted. In the next scene with Atri Preta Bivat, she calls out something like, the Blue Rose Warriors, wherever they are, chasing down the last of those people. And it is like a little drop to say that if you had actually done the strategy, it would have worked. It would have pulled them out of battle. Even like 3 of you that ended up just fleeing were enough to distract them to continue chasing you down. Like it just was a validation of the strategy that they didn't do. And I thought that was such a beautiful little detail of how complete the failure was. I just loved it.
I loved it too. I also loved the little flourish as well where Natarchus, gets stabbed through the head, falls off his horse. And then we get like horse POV for a moment where the horse is like, I'm free. I get to run and be free and I'll never have to do this again. And he like links up with 2 other horses that lost their riders. And they're like, we're just out of here. We don't have to do this anymore. I was like, what a cool flourish, just a beautiful little moment of like, horses don't want to be in here. They're doing this. And then we see this awful moment of the all literally walking over the top of bodies as they roll down the hill. Just horrific.
Yeah, gnarly.
Yeah.
Well, was that I thought that was, okay, so the Letheri / Adur soldiers, they're in sort of like this basin, right? So they were going and they were getting all mucked up. And then they threw the all bodies that they had just killed and used them to give themselves stability to keep charging the all. So the all are seeing this onslaught of people. And then they're like, the corpses come over the hill and now they're walking on the corpses of our people to get to us.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Dark. Fiddler is next up and he's sort of like, this is going to suck because I would love to die fighting, but I know it's going to happen. I'm going to die in a horrible conflagration of sorcery. And that sucks. Don't want
Bummer.
that. Yeah. um, and he's like, "Hey, Bottle, you still got that aerosol to come in and save us?" And he's like, "Nope, sure don't."
She been gone since we made landfall, my brother.
Yeah.
So
Philo's like,
I got an owl that I
us.
could maybe convince to come over.
That's right. And this incredible wall of sorcery springs up, swirling dark purple with like crimson veins of lightning.
Well, just before that, it happened, I think, at the end of the last section that we were with the I can't think of their group name right now. The Bone Hunters. Last time we were with the Malazan army. At the very end, he's looking through the owl's eyes and he's like, "Yep, they're already here. We thought we had a little bit more time. We don't. We got to be ready." And so they get prepared for war, not just to like march onto it, but because it is actively closing in on them faster than that they imagined in these huge numbers. And so by the time the sorcery is here, they can already see the Malazans around them. When we're talking to Kellyanne, she's like, "I'm looking at the army right now," and somebody's like, "It's the other direction." She's like, "Well, I'm looking at them too." So they're like, they are basically surrounded by these Lothari forces. And when they know that they will have to combat this sorcery, but how quickly and how hugely the sorcery springs up. I think it's Bottle that calls it out that this particular spell they must have been working on for days already.
Weeks, yeah. I think they said weeks. Yeah. And there's this realization that they're not here to just destroy us. They're going to kill the Adur as well.
This thing is so uncontrollable. It's just going to vaporize everything, which they can see. They said that the Lothari do want liberators. They just didn't want it to be us.
Right. They're like, "Oh, hey, how convenient it is that we could just kill all of our oppressors in one fell swoop."
Yeah.
And the fell swoop is purple magic with crimson veins.
Yes.
And then we cut over to Hanradi Kalag, who's making the same realization, who's like, "Oh, we've been betrayed. We're here fighting alongside the Lothari, and they're killing us as well." It's an amazing moment how this plays out. Well, okay. So this whole sequence, like this chapter is just exquisitely done. And so we get to Beak and his flashback, which crushed me. I mean, it is so powerful, and so the prose and how we're sort of inside Beak's simple mind,
the innocence,
and the way he uses like run-on sentences, and the way Erikson expresses Beak's mind in the prose, in his internal monologue of this sort of unstructured, simplistic view of what's happening. It's so beautiful and so powerful. And his little mind constantly looking up to his big brother and saying, "That's not how a big brother should act. If I was the bigger brother," which of course foreshadows later, I wouldn't behave that way, because that's not how an older brother is supposed to be. And and he's seeded throughout the novel all of this trauma that this family has unleashed upon the two sons. The abuse, the sexual abuse from the mother, the abuse from the father, and so all of it. And it talks about the son walking in holding a rope and how he's like treating Beak with such like, "Can't play right now, buddy. Can't play right now." It's just
like, the second he comes in with the rope,
Yeah.
And it's brutal. And then Beak's perspective of the whole thing is so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And being like, "This is how big brother should be." He goes and is like leaving to go be in the river. And he's like, "Oh, actually, I have one more question." And he comes back to the barn and he's like, "Oh, my brother's up there. I'm going to go see what's up." And then describing the whole act of his suicide as this mishap with the rope. He's playing with this rope.
He just doesn't understand it. He was
accident.
Yes. Oh,
I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right
I
now.
know.
It's
Yeah,
like, and like trying to stand under him to hold him up to save him and protect him.
for hours. And it's this abandoned place where no one's going to go. And that's why they both chose it. He chose it because he could play there and not be bothered. And the other one chose it because no one was going to discover him. Ugh. And then all the metaphor with the wax figures and how he uses the wax figures to sort of express the passage of time and also how their expressions change. It's just like next level.
Hmm.
I my wife came upon me. I think I mentioned this already. My wife came upon me weeping as I was reading, and she's like, "What's are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't." It's so beautiful, and I don't know how you achieve that level of. It is. I admire it so much because it doesn't feel like in less skillful hands. That's a very manipulative thing to do to the reader,
Yeah.
right? It's a very it's sentimental. It's emotionally manipulative, but it never felt that way in reading it. It just felt honest and it felt beautiful and it felt
It was so tragic, but it was so touching.
yeah,
It was so all enveloping. It was because of the depth of it and how not one note it was, of just being like, isn't this horrible? I
right.
think would have been like, ooh, that's like so gross to read about. But the combination of learning about this character, who they are, understanding the underlying root of the horrible experiences they've had in their life and still coming across as like so hopeful. And
Yeah.
then even through that scene, the hopefulness and being doing that as a flashback, I think is also helpful because we know what Beak is like sort of on the other side of this and what
Yeah.
that has put, what seed that planted in his heart was not one of bitterness, was not one of even deep sadness necessarily, that not one that he can register because of who he is and because of how his mind works. It is one of, I'm gonna protect people someday, baby. They don't
Yeah,
even know what I can do. And
I think
that
that's
combination.
yeah, that's the key is that it's functional, right? It's
Yeah.
not there to just manipulate my emotions. It's it's there to reveal the next moment
Yeah.
and why he cares so much about doing what he can do to save his friends, the people that he believes are his friends. Yeah, I think you hit on it. Absolutely. That is really the difference is that it's there to serve a purpose and to reveal character. And it brings us into that next moment where he unleashes all of the magic, lights all of his candles, saves everybody. And the beauty with which that is expressed, because it's one thing to say, oh, he created a giant force field and it blocked the wave of horrible dark magic. That would be sacrifice. That would be amazing. That would be a
Cool.
cool climax to that moment. But the extra element of it envelops everyone in this light that
Yeah.
reveals them to each other.
Seeing like the depths of people physically, like to their bones, but
Yeah.
also emotionally and what they're carrying, the magic that they're holding. And what does he continue to describe it as? He says, I thought purifying was like a scouring away, but it is like bathing in the I can't remember the exact words of it, but it is like, it is that revealing and
Yeah.
embracing sort of what you are at your core. And sort of, I mean, he's not just putting up this force field thing, but he's purifying all of them.
Right.
Uh, and then the power, the potency of that action, and having it not just be them, but the Malazans being like, man, those Idur, they are also getting screwed.
Oh,
And Fiddler extending a hand, and the visuals of them throwing down their weapons and walking into this protective dome and them being purified on the way in
Yeah.
as well. And people who can't swing it are vaporized, like the Chris Nan
Yeah.
mages that from the Adur side, who I assume to some degree are like poisoned, possibly poisoned by crippled god or whatever it is. They are their own messed up thing. Refuse the purification. Great, you're immediately vaporized and turned to ash. Like the power of it is so potent and lethal, and
Yeah.
it's just so cool.
We get that moment where Fiddler sees inside everybody, and we just kind of go down the list, and we find out that Korab like has cancer, but his luck is like
protects him.
It. Yeah. Everybody gets this kind of moment of Fiddler seeing in their souls, and they're all just I mean, I see it so vividly in my mind, these glowing, radiant figures, and then it's another, you mentioned it, but I think it bears repeating, the way he uses the limited POV to his advantage repeatedly in the series, where we see Fiddler recognize that the Adur are doomed as well. Then we cut over to Hanradi's perspective, Hanradi Kalag, who sees someone he does not know, a Malazan,
an enemy a moment ago,
say, "Come here."
Amazing. The other thing, this is like a very dumb thing that's kind of like, the thing I should have always understood. But Fiddler looking over at Bottle and being like, whoa, he's got so much magic that he's yet to uncork, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, a bottle.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
He's bottled up, bro. Oh.
It's almost like a metaphor. Yeah. So we get back to Beak's perspective, where he has this moment of, he loves his friends. He knows they're his friends because they've all laughed and they even tousled his hair.
Yeah.
It's like that, and he's like, oh man, what I wouldn't give to kiss Feridan's sword.
On the
or
cheek.
Do something even more brave.
Well, he's like on the cheek, or even something even more brave. It's so, the language is so small.
Maybe it's not useful to be this specific about it. And maybe it's not even useful to say, but I imagine him as having downs.
Mm.
Yeah. And as a father of a child with autism, it's just so beautiful to have these characters in a story like this, Heroes. Yeah. I promised myself I wasn't going to cry during this episode, and here I am.
I feel like I keep babbling, because if I don't, I'll just think deeply about it. Gosh, and then I will lose it.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it all, the sorcery ends up vaporizing, I think, some of the Lethari people. Like, it's uncontrollable.
Yeah.
It cannot be, once it's released, it's just destruction.
Yeah. Which we've seen before, right? This is not new. Like, this is kind of their thing, is just, I think we saw Hanan Mosag do something similar, right? Where it's just like, let it go, here we go,
Yeah. But that was like a thing that he conjured, like, right in that moment. The only time we saw something this huge was on those ships, and the reason that Fiddler turned to Bottle was because he had the aerosol to help bolster and protect them. At the end of it, the shield holds, obviously, the power of Beak's candles, and at the end, he is a husk, like literally a husk of ash, with its knees curled to its chest, his head resting in his knees, just arms around them, just a scared kid.
I thought I was done. Like, we get through it, we like cut away, we go to the Lethari, there's all this stuff, and I'm like, I thought I was done crying, and then it goes to Feridan's POV, and she finds him in that position, and I was just like, Waterworks again.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. I mean,
Book
just one of those. I don't know. One of those things that I'll carry with me forever, right? Those reading experiences where you go through something with characters, it's all sort of built and built and built, and it pays off in such a beautiful, memorable way that I like always have that.
Yeah.
You know, like in the same way that I'll always have what's his name? Coltane's death.
Yeah.
That I'll always have that experience of living through that. And that's like the biggest gift of reading, it's incredibly amazing. Anyway, everybody's scars are being healed. They have the hair that's now golden and amazing. It's just like,
well, they're all, I think it's Fiddler being like, all right, we should go and ask this, and also, why are we all white now? And then Gessler's like, speak for yourself, and like takes his helmet off, and his hair is golden.
Yeah. So we get through all that, and now it's this kind of like almost humorous, and I'm like, okay, I cried at the flashback. I cried at Feridan's Sort, finding his little body.
We're done now.
No more crying. Then we cut to Hood's perspective. Well, not
good
his
dude, honestly.
Good dude. Say what you will about the god of death. Decent guy.
Good guy.
And he's waiting for Beak and says, your brother's in there.
Well, Beak like wakes up, has this feeling of waking up, and we have seen Hood's literal gate before.
Yeah.
And it was described as disgusting. Quick Ben's
horrible, like people
fake
trapped
face,
in
like,
it, like screaming. Yeah.
Like dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beak sees a radiant marble wall.
Yeah.
Sees like what I can only think of, sort of like more like a gate of heaven, a traditional gate
gates.
of heaven.
Yeah,
pearly gates.
It's the pearly gates.
And has this soft conversation with Hood, and Hood's like, I don't usually do this.
Yeah.
And Beak being like,
it's not sort of my MO right here, buddy.
My brother's in there, and he's like, yeah, and he's been waiting for you for so long, but he's not going to recognize you. He's like, I know, I'm like so grown up.
Yeah, he's the older one now.
Yeah, and he has to go in and
his brother's like, you want to play with me? And he walks into the sea of wax figures that I've been making these for you, or for him, he says, which is even more. And Hood's like, I'm waiting for one more.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, who's that going to be?
I knew exactly who it was instantly.
Did you?
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting. I didn't.
I was like, who else is still sort of locked in battle and is important?
I mean, I thought it could be Red Mask, because I thought he's waiting for another, and it's not, he doesn't always wait for people for good reasons.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
So I was like, maybe he's waiting for Red Mask. And I kept thinking we're going to get some big reveal on Red, and we kind of do, but on Red Mask's
IMO.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, that's basically the next thing that happens is we cut over to Bavat, who's watching the Kachin Chamali just wreak havoc. And they've been shot with arrows. They've been stabbed with spears. They're still going strong. The spears are like just falling out because they're so active. Can't be stopped, these things. And we have this moment with Brolhandar that's really creepy, where he decides that blood tastes delicious.
Yeah, he's like, honey, I stabbed this person, and whoo, right in the artery. Flowed into my face, and and then like his soldier comes up and they're like, are you hurt? And he's like, what? Let's go.
Yeah, super creepy.
Yeah.
He's like, I think I'm going insane.
Yeah.
It's like, certainly feels like I'm going crazy right now. Anyway, let's kill more people.
Yeah.
And then
Sorry, let's kill all of them specifically. It's
right.
can't wait to eradicate them.
Then we have another amazing little flavor scene that just gives another aspect to this war that's so powerful. I felt so powerful. Massarch, who is now sort of resentful to Red Mask, going, "We are getting beaten here. It's your fault." This Letheri soldier charges at him, screams at him, stabs him. Massarch is dying, and the Theri soldier is screaming something. He's like, "I just want to understand what this soldier is saying before I die." And as the blackness is enveloping him, he hears, "Keep me alive, please. Keep me alive, please."
Mm-hmm.
What was your interpretation of that?
Well, my interpretation of it, to me, it was just like war in a single interaction. It's people afraid on both sides, and nobody really wants to be doing this. Everybody is calling out to something. Massarch is sort of ruining Red Mask and the situation that they're in, and making him feel like I'm literally dying to my worst fear, like I did on my quote unquote death day where you buried me. Now I'm actually buried in the mud and I'm literally dying now.
Yeah.
And then the soldier on the other side screaming at him, being like, "What are you saying? What is this like fanaticism that you're talking about?" And to me, I just read it as he's also just afraid. He's also in a situation that he's just sort of talking to whoever, not wanting his own life to end.
Yeah.
That was my interpretation.
I think that's accurate.
Did you have like a specific thing that you thought he was calling to?
I mean, "Keep me alive, please. Keep me alive, please," is, as he kills someone else, who's he speaking to? Is he speaking to Massarch? Is he speaking to his god? Is he speaking
a prayer?
to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he? It's what I loved about it was how, what's the word I'm looking for? Non sequitur it is.
Yeah.
It is almost a deranged comment. It is a, it feels detached from reality because it doesn't fit the moment, but it also like it feels desperate and scary and insane, but also you feel the emotion, the fear behind it, right?
If you pop into that guy's perspective, if I think about, I've not been a soldier, never been a soldier, but if I were to try and put myself in the mind of your front lines, you're probably, even if with training, this is the first time that you're going in and doing something, and whatever it is, running in, you have a helmet on, you can probably only hear your own breath, your own heartbeat, let alone like the shouts of other people around you, and just running in, and you're kind of, at least in this scattered chaos of what this fight has been, you're not like, okay, we're tactical doing blah, 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 blah. You're just in a world of your own. And I think that's why it is a non sequitur, is because he's like, everything is chaos. I'm running in and I'm killing people before they kill me. And that is the start and end of it. And the whole time I'm just thinking about my God. And I'm saying, please keep me alive. Please keep me alive. Please keep me alive. Please. And everybody you stab, you're like, keep me alive. Keep me alive. Keep me alive. And that's the only thing you care about, because you're still fighting for your side, but there's nothing else to your world other than survival and chaos and survival.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. And just a small little moment, It's what these novels are so amazing about. I just, all right. And then we get to this big moment with Red Mask, who's like, "I'm still going. My horse is still going. I'm still going. I still got my rad lizard dinosaur friends. They'll never betray me. They're awesome." And then, of course, the head of his horse goes away, which is such a rad way, where he looks at one of the Kachin Shamale, sees its like cold eyes regard him, and then the head of his horse falls off.
Yeah.
He goes flying off the horse because it keeps riding for a couple of moments. Then sword through his knees. He falls back, the legs still standing, just epic. And it so comes out of nowhere. It really shook me. He dies, and I'm like, what, why? What?
It's so confusing.
Yeah.
What happens. It's so, because you're in his POV the second before this happens. And it is like Red Mask does these things. It is his POV. Anyway.
So
we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Do we want to finish off it like his? No, just keep going.
Well, so we go over to Talk, and Talk sees that happen. He sees the Kachin Shamali like poking at Red Mask's corpse, making sure he's dead, and then run off. And Torrent in the background, ready to like back there, just ready to yell at Talk. Is just
you got it. I like that. I can picture Torrent about to be like, "There he goes. That's my boy."
I know that. Seconds before we cut over here, he's just like, "Go Red Mask, go!"
Oh, there was like literally a scene where Torrent is like literally cheering like he's in a stadium.
Yeah. Red Mask. Can't be stopped. Can't be stopped. And he's just like,
so funny.
I mean, it is darkly humorous, but it's amazing how Torrent's whole world just gets shattered in that moment. And Talk is like, okay, things just got real bad.
I see the writing on the walls.
Yeah. There's some more Letheri coming. We just lost our leader, and it looks like our shaved knuckle in the hole, our little, our win buttons, our 2 dinosaur win buttons just turned on us. So I kind of see what's up.
How about you get the kids to safety, huh?
Yeah.
How about you get the kids to safety?
Also, here's my poems.
Yeah.
Save my poems. Which I love.
Yeah,
totally love.
Pen is mightier, baby. Pen is mightier.
Totally love. Also that moment where it's so dark, but Talk is like, should I just kill these kids?
Oh my gosh. Because it'll be more merciful if I do this quickly.
If I put my hand over their eyes and just give them a quick, it's just like, heart-wrenching.
The darkness of what they're looking at.
Yeah.
It's like if you didn't realize how chaotic and horrible it would be to witness and how everybody's like, it's going to be so bloody. And it must be horrible.
Yeah.
Then Talk being like, this would be better for them puts that in extreme contrast if you hadn't already gotten there already.
And he just is like, all right, here we go. Time to do whatever I can to give them a chance to escape. So Torrent, in his infinite wisdom, is like, we could totally. I really want to watch this, though.
Yeah,
we'll just stay right here. So I gotta see how this turns out.
So Talk convinces Torrent. He's like, okay, we both just saw the big boss go down. You gotta go. He basically shakes Torrent out of his blindness in a way, and he's like, take these kids. Do you want your people to survive? Oh, and he looks in the distance, and the thing that sort of spurs all of the action is he sees another army.
Yeah.
Some other army, a foreign army, has appeared. And he's like, all right, things ain't over for you yet, but it is over for you here. So take the kids, take my poems, and get the heck out of here, buddy. And he basically is like, off with you, and like mounts up on a horse, has his bag of arrows, and rides into battle to buy them time. Torrent pieces out with the kids, and he's like, man, I really thought that dude was a coward. Huh.
Turns out I really misjudged that guy.
And then turns to like bear witness to what Talk does, which is incredible. And Talk, for everything that he does, being like, I'm really not a soldier. And then he's riding the horse, guiding it with just his knees, loosing arrows. He only has 12. Every single arrow hits. He does not miss once. Just buying time, immediately becoming a distraction for the rest of the enemy forces, sort of piling in on him and sort of ending things for him. But it is this amazing feat of soldierness.
Yeah. Heroism
for a non-soldier to sort of finish up, but I forget exactly what his ultimate demise was. He got like
Well, they
hit in
just
the
surround
leg.
him and
They just
stab him
skewer
and
him.
slice him up. But
Oh,
before,
and
as
they
that's
cut his
happening,
face off.
oh, dude, that's the worst part.
Oh my God. Horrible. Disgusting.
Yeah, just taking his face as a trophy. But before that, we have this this moment where Talk sort of like thinks back to everything that's happened to him in the series.
Yeah.
We get that, you know, that last like flashback montage from all the previous movies. You know, where it's like, you know, get the little bit of music, and we get like Tattersail and like all the things that he
It's
thought,
like,
you know.
as we go on,
Yeah.
we remember. Yeah.
That's right. And I will, you know, to the end of the road, you know, and he's like galloping in slow motion, pulling his arrow back, and we crossfade with him being squished by a changeable matron over and over, and you know, all the different things.
Him just looking horrified at Lady Envy.
The end of the road, you know. Yeah, but then yeah, it gets sliced up, and then the way it's described as from behind, just like feeling the bottom of his face get wet, and it just peeling his face off. Oh,
Being conscious while somebody slices your face off. The POV of the person who's getting their face sliced.
no, thank you. No, thank you. Yeah,
Brutal.
and we had this little moment where we cut back to Torrent, and he looks, and all the children are crying, and he's like, I really probably shouldn't have let them see that.
It's like, I think it was important to witness, but like, wow, did some damage.
That one's on me. That's on me. Shouldn't have.
I'm not a parent myself. I don't know. I don't know
not
what's
have
right.
allowed the children to see the one person that was ever nice to them.
Sorry, I thought this
removed.
was like a 14A. It's clearly 18A. I'm really sorry. Really sorry.
That's my bad. That's my bad. And shocker upon shockers, the new army that showed up is the white-faced Barghast. Boom.
I feel like, what was it, last week? I feel like I finally got there. The handprints, and then I was like, in the boats, whose boats were those?
You were
and I
right.
was like, oh, yes, I felt so good.
You
didn't quite remember the word Barghast. Could not remember the word Barghast to save my life, but
I thought this right when I read it. I was like, Lana is so good. She picked up on all the clues that I completely went whoop right over my head, but it was all right there. You know, they were trailing them. We even had that moment. I can't remember who it was, but somebody saw the like giant dude standing there watching. You know, I feel like it was all there. So it's Tool and Hayten, who come out. Hayten Tar and Kalava. We know, and we we get like a lot of what they've been up to. It's like, oh wow, so Humbrol Tor died, and Onos Tulan became the new war chief. It's like, oh, there's a lot of stuff been happening with these folks since last we checked on them.
They got babies.
And, yeah.
What have they been doing? Being human, man. Just doing human stuff.
Yeah. And they don't know who's what or who's who. They were here to murder everybody.
They're here to murder. To me, it's such an immediate turn of like a seriousness, but it's still Tool and folks that come out. But I almost pictured like I don't want to say jovialness, but there's like a lightness to it, because he's kind of like, what's happening over there? Time to do murder. And then he's like, that guy seemed really good on the horse, huh?
He's so good.
Talented guy.
I was going to murder all those children right there, but
that guy,
give it up to that guy. Like, give it up to that guy. You know what I'm saying?
And those kids clearly like thought that they need to see that guy, so they must know that guy. Maybe I'll kill him anyway.
I'm gonna let those kids live because that guy's so rad.
And then he like immediately knows what, I forget if they say his name or if he just describes him as who he. Well, we find out that he's like had this private joke of being like, I'm in Warren, you can't see me, but like has been near Talk, and like Haytan describes it as like it's been his like private joke that he's been like. He doesn't know that I'm right here. And then he like just like this bare miss of their reunion. It's like
Bear miss.
another tumbling of tragedies as we go through this chapter.
Totally.
Ugh.
But it's funny because they're with Torrance right there, and he's like, these guys are gonna murder me, and they're like, we're not gonna murder you right now. Maybe later we'll murder you, but not right now because that guy's so awesome. He's like, yeah, he's like, you're right. I didn't think that guy was awesome, but it turns out he's super awesome. And and they're like, what did he give you? And he's like, oh, this?
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know,
that's
just
what
a
it
sack
is.
of poems. And Tool's like, sack of poems?
Yeah, that's what it is.
And that's what Tool is like,
oh.
and then he's like, he runs over to the body, and someone's like, he doesn't have a face. Stop. You don't want to see his face is not, you're not gonna, don't look at it.
Yeah.
And Kalava's like, no, let him, he's got to look at the his friend faceless. It's gonna,
I also just love that the Enduran Letheri army that's there is like, yeah, we're all dying. They're like, oh, can we maybe like parlay with this dude? And then
yeah.
they're like, nah, this not.
That's the next part is
happen.
Brawlhandar and Bivat are both like, you know what? You've been a good fighter. You know what? You've been a good fighter. Yeah. Let's die together. High fives.
Woo!
High fives. Let's have a good
Mutually
death.
assured destruction.
Yeah, we'll just go to our death. And then we have this beautiful moment where Brawlhandar walks up to that bodyguard that saved him and is like, hey, buddy, I want to die beside you.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, let's be bros.
Even like this army that's been like so disgusting, and even like literally one scene ago being like, blood's like great to drink. Let's finish this genocide, baby. Can't wait. And then he has this moment going up to the guard and being like, I want to finish this with you. Yeah. And I'll stand on your left side, nobody guarding my flank. But honestly, that's the poetry here, is I'll guard yours. And even that is like, this guy's a piece of trash. With a touching heart.
Literal bloodthirsty monster.
Literal bloodthirsty.
The heart of gold.
Exactly. Oh my God. It's just, come on.
So then we pop back over to Dreen and we see Venit Sathad finally murder Latour Anikt, which is pretty satisfying. He just walks right up to him, stabs him in the face, or stabs him through the eye is what it is.
Yeah. Love that. He's
pretty
like,
cool.
He's like, I wasn't rushing, but I wasn't sauntering. I was just walking with the thing to do.
Yeah.
Which was stab this guy in the eye. I'm not acting as my role. I'm acting as an indebted, and I'm sick of it. Ooh, joining the riot.
Sick.
Love it.
Then we're back to Tool and Kalava, and they recognize that Red Mask wore a Kachin Shamali matron's throat as his face mask.
That was the tiny scales.
Tiny scales, her throat. And they pull it back and they realize, bum, 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 Red Mask, not an all, a Letheri.
And so this is the part, I forgot that scene on the horse was like from his POV right the second before.
Yeah.
When I was like, we did learn something about him, but I immediately, as soon as you reminded me of that, I was like, oh, no, he didn't. But I thought briefly that reveal was saying that Red Mask, it wasn't actually Red Mask at the end there. He abandoned them all to die. And I was like, maybe he was getting his revenge for being banished. That he was like, I'll lead you all into battle. No, just kidding. You're all dead.
Interesting that he like had a fake Red Mask.
But it was him. That was him for sure. So
I think what the reveal is, and this is why he didn't want anyone to know who his father was. That's why the whole time, like he kills that Renfayer elder who knew who his father was, and he was desperately trying to protect the secret of who his father was, which is, I ain't even one of you guys. I'm trying to lead you. But he was so angry at the Letheri. For some reason, I don't think we ever get actual spelled out for us, but that there's something that makes him hate the Letheri. Maybe it was his father, whatever, but he hated his own people, and so he used the all to get revenge on them by leading them, by pretending that he was one of them. So that was the big, but we never get a reason why he could control the Kachenchimale.
So he hated the Letheri,
Yeah.
but people knew of his banishment. So is this like if people knew who his father was, they seemed to recognize him. He knew their customs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It seemed like he was of the all.
Well, I think maybe he was raised by the all. He's like somebody raised
like a foundling
in a different culture. Like he was banished from the Letheri, raised by the all,
and then banished again.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm maybe the details are elusive still, but the sense that I get is that his great secret was they would never have let him lead them if they knew he wasn't one of them.
Like truly of them. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense to me. That totally makes sense to me.
Yeah. But again, we still don't know how he knew the Kachenchimale's names or how he led them, which was a little bit of a disappointment to me. But it's also like one of those things that is like, we don't need to know how the Force works. We don't need. There's certain things that can still be just mysterious and like,
to me, I was like,
this guy can do it, and that's the important part.
Who knows the magic that is contained in a matron's flesh?
Yes.
There could be something there of like, oh, I happened to slaughter this matron and I cut her throat out.
100%.
That's the communication gland. 100%. I'm fine
with
that.
I found a dead matron's body and cut it off and put it on my face. Yeah. But the details of that, I'm a little disappointed that we don't know them, but I'm not like, I kind of feel like a little bit of mystery there is fine.
One more chapter.
Well, that's true too. I just feel like he's exited our story.
I agree.
But maybe not. All right. Then we cut back to Hood. And as you predicted, the other person he was waiting for is Talk the Younger. And there's some dispute over, he's like, I really wanted you, even though the Wolves of Winter wanted you, Tog and Fandere.
Mm-hmm.
He, he's like, why do I still have an eye? Why do I don't have an eye? Shouldn't I have all my stuff back as a dead body? He's like, I don't get it either.
He's like, but there's also dang wolves.
Dang wolves, yeah. There's also this thing about how his father, Tuck the Elder, is still alive because he's like, your dad's not here yet. So you're going to have to wait for him. And have we met Tuck the Elder?
I think we've only heard of Talk the Elder. And I don't know if he was Talk the Elder. I think he was just Talk. I think the only time he was really referenced was when we first meet Talk the Younger. And he's like, I'm the younger. I'm not my dad.
Right.
At like the very, very beginning. And then I think maybe once, if I have my story straight, when he's like talking with one of the bridge burners later and they say something and he introduces himself and he says something about his dad being like, yeah, my dad, blah, 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 with Lacine or the Empress or maybe with the Emperor, but I'm Talk the Younger at the beginning. So he meets, isn't Talk the person who escorts Ganus at the beginning? Saves him. He like emerges and he's like, you got stabbed in the street. I'm like, oh, what you doing? Wake up. Come through this portal. Is he a mage? No. Who was that? What's wrong with me?
I don't know.
I've gotten it wrong.
I don't remember.
I don't remember some of those particular loops, but
it seems to me like this is indicating that Talk the Elder is going to come into the story in a bigger way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's chapter 22.
Whew.
An hour and 18 minutes in. Chapter 23, we get to the other huge plot line, culmination of that, with Onrack and Trull, who are inside this, they go into this cave with Ulshan Prowl. They see the painting, this painting that Ulshan Prowl has been working on of himself and a woman. And
Onrack's like, I went to jail for that.
Yeah, that's right. You're not supposed to do that.
He's like, you are really good, but
yeah.
I see a couple.
He's also like,
I have a couple notes. I have a couple notes.
I have a couple of notes. Yeah. So they, oh man, there's so much that happens. They head out to find the gate. there's a lot of discussion about the Talana Moss and who they are and the ritual. And basically the idea that I got is that there's these Talana Moss that escaped the ritual, came to this place that has been allowing them to be immortal, but is no longer going to allow them to be immortal because it's dying.
Yes.
That's the kind of the big takeaway.
But did they, I thought it said that they didn't escape the ritual. They were never actually part of the ritual.
Well, but
They were
yes.
never,
but the reason that they weren't is because they came here, right?
oh, right. It said that, it's not that they have reverted the ritual in the way that Onrack did. It's that they were never part of the ritual. They've always been here. Yeah.
Because they escaped to here, basically.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so then we check in with Hedge and Quick Ben, who are just like bickering.
So they're like, "Can you believe we hugged?"
Yeah. So
yeah,
great.
I hate you.
I can't believe I hugged you like I was excited to see you. You're a jerk face.
I love them. They're like sitting on this one picture, kind of like a berm. I have like an oasis behind them and some kind of like desert field, whatever in front of them, being like bad stuff's gonna come from over there. And they're like, "What are you doing?" Like Quickman looks at Hedge and is like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Contemplating." And what is written contemplating. It's like so funny to write it in that he immediately mocks him and with like that, like I picture it so clearly. It's so funny. I just love it.
I could be wrong, but I felt like the exchange was like, "What are you meditating?" And he's like, "If I was meditating, you would have ruined it."
Yes.
And he's like, and then later on, he's like, I was definitely meditating. It's so funny. Anyway, there's a moment where Hedge is like, "You're soul taken too, right? You just been lying to us that you aren't soul taken." He's like, no, idiot. I'm not soul taken. And then
does he deny him so definitively?
I think he basically squashes that, but
I thought he squashed it, but I don't think he said no. I think that Quick Ben would never give a definitive answer about his magic.
Yeah, that
so
feels
it was
right.
kind of like that's an absurd notion. Is like well, it's not a no.
Interesting. Yeah, we keep getting these hints that there's more inside Quick Ben that we haven't heard about. So maybe I don't know. So Menendor shows up. She's like, "You guys, I'm gonna kill you guys." And
like her son's there, so they're kind of sitting and bickering, and she shows up and she's like, "What are you two idiots doing? You're all dead." And they're like, "Maybe you look stupid," or like they have like sort of like a weird little non-conversation, being like, she's like, "Ugh, whatever, here for my son." And then Rude comes out with Ulshan Prawl, and she's like, "All right, time to go. We're gonna kill all your buddies. This place is ending." Or whatever. And he's like, "No, I'm hanging with my new friend's Ma." And she's like, you condemn me when you say that stuff.
Your own mother.
Exactly. And he's like, "Well, so be it. I'm going with my new friends and I'm going away and we're going to go hide. You can't get us." And she's like, "Fine." And he's like, "Fine." And then like they leave. And Quick Ben and Hedge are both just kind of sitting there with like looking at the family spat, being like, "So she's definitely gonna come kill everybody, right?" And he's like, "Oh, for sure."
He's like, I put a stone in her pocket."
Ooh,
which I thought was going to come into a much bigger play and kind of doesn't. But I feel like that's how he tracks her. Is that right?
I felt like that's how maybe he could like target his magic so well, or maybe it connected to his magic. I don't quite know, but I just love that she's like, "I'm out of here." And he's like, "Fine, well, you don't get my favorite rock."
yeah. And I'm just like, "Was that one really your favorite rock?" And he's like, "No, idiot."
Well, he's like, "Which one is your favorite rock?" He goes, "Is that your favorite rock?" He goes, "This one or the one I put into her pocket?" And it's like,
oh snap. Yeah, totally. Then we cut over to Sheltatha Lore and Sukul and Daku. And they're just angry and pissed and they want to murder everybody. And they're like, "Okay, let's all become dragons and we'll do it."
Dragons on 3. 1, 2, 3, murder.
Dragons.
Yeah.
We're all on the same page, right? Yeah, I love you. You love me. Everybody's cool. Let's all murder it. And then we cut over to Sarah and Pedak, who are walking through the dead dragon fields. And I love how they're like, "Oh, they just died of natural causes. They just came here."
Oh, they just
slumped
hunky.
over.
That's interesting because I was like, isn't this where what's her face like punched everybody to death? But then it clearly was like they all tried to get to the gate, but then they couldn't because it was like
Yeah.
semi-sealed or whatever.
Just died right here.
And then they all
Just
just
kind
like
of
lied
curled
down.
up. Yeah. Anyway. And Saren is like, man, Udnas is like the only likable one.
God, I know. Wow, all of us really suck.
We are all jerk faces. And then Fear's like, hey, what are you thinking about? And she's like, how much you're a jerk face. And he's like, oh, but I'm gonna take Scavendara's soul and redeem the Tistadur and expel chaos from Corral de Emerlon. And she's like, no, you're not.
I
No,
hate to break
you
it to
suck,
you.
and the things you do suck, and you're gonna fail, and you suck.
Your dream is dead, bro.
Yeah.
And I like
And
how she says that as a way of like it hurts him so deeply that he's like, well, I'm not protecting you then. Gosh, why did I vow anything to you? It's just like being a jerk enough that he's like, all right, consider the vow severed, I guess.
yeah.
But then he like walks a little lighter because he's like, okay, I'm not vowed to this person anymore. It's like,
it's so funny that if you like took out all the stuff in between and you just push these scenes back to back, it would be like Fear being like, my brother loved you, and so I will give my life for you. I don't want your protection. It doesn't matter. I will protect you. And I also will take the finished and do what I must. And she's like, no, you're not. He's like, I'm not protecting you anymore.
oh my God.
just like a 180 degree whiplash of like, nothing can stop me from protecting you, even your own opinions. And she's like, well, my opinion is you're horrible at everything you do.
Dumb.
Well, I'm not protecting you anymore.
That was pretty hurtful, and
I'm not
gonna walk over here. I want to hang on a clip, see what happens.
I don't like you anymore. So they come across this the corpse of the bone caster that sacrificed herself to close the gate, but it's not working anymore. And Clip says that beyond the gate is dying, and Udnas is like, yeah, well, guess what? Menendor knows our location. And, or no, Saren says that. And Udnas is like, yeah, because you looked inside my brain.
He's like, left no stone unturned, huh?
Yeah. Not cool. That was information I had. But Udnas is like, oh, well, I don't actually hate Fear. And he takes the Imas spear and gives it to Saren Pedak. And then Silch, it's such a weird moment where it's like everybody acknowledges that they all want to murder each other. And then Silchus is like, takes his sword, stabs him in the ground, is like, all right, gonna get ready for the fight to the death that we're all gonna have with each other.
Yeah. Straps up, straps in.
Yeah, just getting ready. He's like, I guess this is where we do it. We've all been hanging out, but now it's time for fighting each other. And then the three dragons appear in the sky: Menendor, Sheltatha, and Sakul. Oh, this is back to
the Quick
Ulshan
Ben
Prall's perspective. Yeah.
Oh, Ulshan Prall? I thought it was Quick Ben and Hedge.
Yes, both actually. Yes, we have a Hedge scene. We have an Ulshan Prall scene. Hedge is like, why didn't Menendor just hide the Finnist? And Quick Ben is like, she did. We found it. That's how that works.
Yeah. Oh, and the thing, I forgot to mention about Ulshan Prall. Ulshan Prall is like, I have a big secret.
Yeah.
Like, right. And Rude wants to save Ulshan Prall no matter what because he's got some secret.
That's right.
When he mentioned his secret secrets, did you think anything about them?
I did not guess what the secret was. No. Did you?
I had an inkling.
Really? You're so good.
I can't
yearn
remember
for your level of insight.
Well, even the moment that Onrack was like, this art on the wall is pretty good. It's genetic.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a couple little things that, especially in these chapters, and I don't know if that was when it was already like, it's punching you in the face they are related.
Yeah.
But that was I wouldn't say that the thought was fully formed, but when it was revealed, I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. I don't know. In
Yeah.
like a
Well, he does see, like, Ocean sees Onrack, and like he starts tearing up with pride, and it's like, oh yeah, well, there's clearly some connection there, but I'm still too dense to get anything.
mm-mm.
And then Quick Ben punches Hedge in the face, and he bleeds. He's like, "Why'd you do that? I'm bleeding." He's like, "Yeah, you're bleeding.
So get it? Wake
Get
up.
it?"
Wake up, sheeple.
Yeah.
I love
Wake up,
this.
sheep.
I love the scene with Quick Ben and Hedge. I almost you've seen Cabin in the Woods.
Sure.
You know that scene where he's like smoking and really slowly something's coming in the background?
Yeah.
I pictured that same sort of camera work on this scene with like Quick Ben and Hedge, where Hedge is back there trying to like figure out he's just got his crossbow or whatever, and he's like sassing Quick Ben. Quick Ben's trying to get prepared for like whatever is coming. Doesn't he like laugh at his arms and he's like skinny, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
like whatever.
Skinny arms.
And
Yeah.
the dragon's the entire time getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they're like bicker. He punches him in the face. He's like, snap out of it, blah, 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 whatever. He's like, ugh. And then right before the dragons get there, he's like, magic. And it just eliminates
so
them.
Good. So good.
It's so wonderful.
We've built up the three dragon sisters so much. We get that moment where they're coming, and it's like Menendor unhinges her jaw. And I was like, oh snap, unhinges her jaw. Yeah. And then exactly as you described, Quick Ben just turns around and is like, eat actual floor. Just like the ground just like smacks them in the face.
I also love it because it's like, okay, Menendor unhinges her jaw, and then I'm like, oh, they're gonna shoot like a cuss or something into her mouth, and it's like, oh, all three of them are opening their jaws, and I'm like, oh, but could they do it with all three? And then it was like magic basically knocks all the hairs upwards so that whatever magic they spewed into like nothingness, because they're all like, ugh, and then they fall down and then attack each other.
It's badass though, because Quick Ben, shoots the ground up at them, knocks them down, and he just walks forward, just like psha, 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 just like walking forward like a Wild West movie where he's just like, walking down the whatever, what I'm talking about,
berm.
the Central Street.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Showdown at the OK Corral style. So good. Yeah.
So good.
And then they turn on each other, which is even crazier.
Instantly. And Menendor had been like, I had a plan so that I didn't get caught out. And so one of the dragons immediately leans over and bites the other one in the neck and like rips its head off, basically. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that must be Menendor. But then in that time, their like stomach has been cut, and then Hedge shoots the crossbow into it and explodes the one dragon. And they're like, well, they're done. Got him. That other one got away.
There's one more. He's like, don't worry, Rude's got that one. No worries. Yeah.
Ugh, so ridiculous. And then Quick Ben coming up and being like crazy that they bit Menendor in the neck immediately. And I'm like, oh yeah, she doesn't have everything. She thinks she's 20 steps ahead. Yeah. But her sisters are just as, power hungry and sinister as vicious. She is.
Yeah. It's another scene where we see just how badass Quick Ben is. Yeah. Where he can literally dispatch 3 dragons without breaking a sweat, basically.
Yeah.
It's so sick. But then we cut over to Onrack and Ocean Prawl, which at the time I didn't think of this way, but I love how it's basically like, hey Dad, I'm also an artist, and these are my paintings, and what do you think of them? They are obviously they're not perfect, but I've been really trying hard.
I'm getting better. I'm really practicing. And I hope I don't go to jail.
I'll never be the artist that you are. Because your painting is so good, it literally trapped a lady's soul. Mom. And then it cuts over to hostile Rhaetor and Rude. And they're like, okay, here we go. Let's do this. Here comes the last dragon. And it's such a rad fight with them too. Is him, like literally they go into the cave to force her to come out of dragon form into person form, because that's what can fit in the cave. Mm-hmm. And then we have like the choking and the slicing. So good.
Excellent.
So good. Oh, and then the two other bear form things. They're like not bears, but not bears. Attack and slice, and we have that amazing moment where they both die at the same time. You know,
Yes.
it's like she's slicing her face away with its bare claws, but she's stabbed into its chest, and so they both like collapse on each other, and
Well,
everybody's dead.
she like dies, and then it says something like maybe she would have been able to sort of like do some kind of semblance of a recovery, but the bear dies and crushes her underneath it after it
Yeah,
collapses.
like it's just a mutually assured destruction moment where
It's
everybody dies.
yeah,
Yeah,
and this burst of it feels like this burst of activity, and
yeah,
then nothing. It's
so
very
cool.
cool.
Yeah, and like I love the line where it's like the only sound you could hear was the dripping of blood.
Blood, oh, so good.
So rad.
The also is it a revelation in any way that these Imas, Ben tracked Imas were soul taken?
I guess. I mean, at this point, it didn't surprise me, but
But
maybe.
I thought it was interesting because I don't know if that, I guess Kalava is soul taken, so it's not unheard
Yeah,
of. But we haven't seen anybody other than Kalava be that.
yeah. So
Interesting.
then we get to this amazing sequence that is we see from a bunch of different perspectives, where people are coming through the gate. We see from the gate is bright. You can't quite see it. You see silhouettes of people. Nobody knows who's who. Silchus is coming through the gate first. Then Fierce Sengar tries to stab Silchus in the back, but because he's coming through the gate, he sees Trull, his brother, who he thinks is dead, and that freaks him out. So he kind of like doesn't stab, and then Clip throws his chain around his neck and slices him,
Slices his head
basically
fully off.
decapitating Fear.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if I thought that Clip was just really fast. I thought Fear walked through the gate, saw his brother, and was like, I have to kill Silchus right now. And so tried to get Silchus because he saw Troll and was like, oh, crap. And then Clip got to him before he could get to Silchus.
Interesting. My interpretation was that his plan was to kill Silchus, sees Troll, and that
Hesitates.
freaks him out for a second, which is the reason that Clip is able to murder him before he can do what he intended to do.
Yeah, I'd have to reread it. I don't remember which.
But the whole thing is so chaotic and intense. I mean, I read it as such a clip, no pun intended, because you see, Saren Pedak's perspective, and she's like, she can't see somebody standing in front of her, so she's
like,
trying to look around
that?
them and see who it is, and yeah, and then everybody is attacking everybody. I mean, Udnas is trying to protect Kettle, and Wither attacks Udnas. I'm like, what does Wither want to kill Udnas?
I don't know. I think maybe the only thing I could think of is that Wither knew that what happened to Kettle had to happen.
Right. And he was trying to protect Kettle.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't
crazy.
know why Wither wouldn't just be like, hey, man, let it go. The fact that he choked him, I was like, what?
But don't, though. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Well, then Wither is killed. Saren throws the spear and kills Wither.
Yeah.
And then Clip attacks Udnas. Clip throws Kettle. And then Saren is like, oh, no, you don't. And is using her Makra to mess up Clip, which was rad, where she's like,
punch his brains out.
Punching his actual brain with her brain. And it's working. Like, he's getting all bloodied up and.
But she's not in perfect control of her magic, and so he was able to sort of turn the tides and give her a stab as well.
And Silchus is fighting Trull, who we know is amazing with the spear and able to hold his own, but is kind of turning the tide and beating Trull. And then because Trull saw Clip kill his brother, he's all freaked out, and Saren, and then he gets stabbed in the hip.
He sees Clip kill his brother, and he's like, I gotta kill that guy, but this guy's standing in my way, who was traveling with him, so I'm gonna get this guy first. Gets stabbed in the leg, but does like an amazing amount of damage to Silchus in that time as well, and has him like fallen on the ground and spun away, but his leg becomes like completely a dead leg. And
yeah,
then,
but there's that moment where Saren is like, I have a choice. I can save Udnas or I can save Trull.
and
And she's like,
Trull,
oh, I'm not going to make a choice. I'm going to throw the spear to Trull and also save Udnas. Right?
and yeah, because Trull is fighting Silchus, and his spear is breaking because it's a crappy
Shattering,
spear.
right? Yeah,
And so then his spear basically shatters, but he ends up using like the end of it or something to like knock Silchus away. But his leg dies. But then he's like, another spear, like grabs it and is able to keep fighting.
She rolls the spear at him, and then Silchus like
Oh,
steps
yeah.
on it and
Whip.
it's like, whoop, yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
But the hardest thing for me to reconcile, I mean, this sequence is incredible, but the hardest thing for me to reconcile is that Onrack doesn't help Trull.
Yeah.
Remember, Onrack freezes and is like, doesn't help Trull fight.
Well,
Silchus.
Silchus uses magic. He doesn't freeze. Silchus uses magic and smashes into a wall and knocks him out instantly.
I don't think that's true. I think what happens is Onrack knows that Trull is going to lose and decides that he's not going to risk it. He recognizes that Ulshen
he gets smashed into a wall. He chooses between Trull and Ulshen Prawl.
Right.
But he comes out and he gets picked up. At some point he comes out, gets picked up by magic and smashed into a wall. That does happen for sure.
I recall there being a moment where Onrack like makes a decision not to help Trull, and it really messed with me because they're such bros.
I thought like this is my recollection is Onrack's protecting the cave. He's got to protect Ulshen Prawl. And then at some point he turns around and he's like, stay in the cave. Just stay in the cave.
Yeah.
And he leaves.
Yeah. Well, he has that recognition where he's like how he walks, he's like, he's got a certain manner about him that I recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he does emerge, and then as he emerges, he's like, Trull is getting the crap kicked out of him. He's going to lose. And I think he makes a move to go help him, but he gets picked up and held with magic and flung.
Well, that's not until later. That's when Silchus decides he's going to kill Ulshen Prawl. That's
Oh, so it's not when he helps Trull. But it does happen. It just doesn't happen right then.
Right. So Silchus tells Onrack to step aside because he knows that Ulshen Prawl has the Finnest. He's got the dagger.
Yeah.
So he's like, get out of my way. And Onrack is like, nope, because he knows that's his son at this point, which we haven't been told as readers, but Onrack has made the connection.
Yes.
And he's like, no, I will not. And then he gets flung into the wall at that point.
That's what it is. That's what I'm thinking of.
That's right. And that's when Udnas is struggling to breathe. Saren is like, tells Trull, like, just chill. You can't save him now. Like, save yourself. She puts her hand on his shoulder. And then that's when Kalava Onas comes out and is like, get your hands off my son.
She's like, look at me.
Yeah.
Look at me. You think I'm messing around?
Yeah.
You see this pelt? I think you know what that means.
Yeah.
Do you need? You can do what you got to do, but you not killing my baby boy.
And you're lucky. And you didn't kill my man's because I would have already killed you.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, you're right. He does choose Ulshen Prawl over Trull, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
But then that was the moment right before Saren threw him this extra spear anyway. So Trull's fine. Everybody's fine. It worked out. But we do see like where his like the weight of his camaraderie.
And I guess in that moment, it bothered me because I didn't make the connection that it was his son yet. Knowing that it's his son, like you get it, like you're going to save your son over your
kid,
best friend.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, I was like, but you love each other.
Bros.
You're such bros.
I love that Silchus comes in. He has him by the throat, and Kalava's like, and he's like, well, I only need this. And like drops him and walks away.
Yeah. I just want the dagger. And then everybody's standing there watching as he takes the dagger and he walks over to the little girl who's over there and stabs her in the heart. And everybody's like, I
The
didn't
fact
think
that
he was going to do that with the dagger.
we get no Kettle POV whatsoever.
I know.
But like, it doesn't feel like a sadness. It feels to me, I'm like, all right, everybody. This is a grand miscommunication. If anybody at any point had been like,
Yeah.
that's Azoth, we
Yeah.
have to go plant it and we'll save everything, actually. Wouldn't you stop killing each other? What in the heck, you guys?
It really is an advertisement for better communication. You know, like let's all just talk it out.
That's what it feels like to work.
I mean,
game
somebody even
development.
says that. I think is it Udnas? Somebody even says like,
Oh,
we
we
didn't have
just
to fight each other.
knew.
We really didn't have to fight each other at all.
I think we all actually would have wanted this.
Yeah. But it is sad because we've been hearing Kettle being like, I know what's coming. I know what I have to do. I know what's going to happen the whole time. And Udnas knew too, right? He knew. And he starts literally weeping because Kettle is murdered and like vines erupt out of her and it becomes an Azath house, saving the refugium. Yeah. Saving the place where all these Imas can live. And opening the gates to Starvald Demolane, or preserving the gates in this Azath house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I love afterwards, Kalava's like, oh my God, baby. So good to see you. Check out this realm, huh? This is our son. If you haven't already put that together, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, I thought that was like a special
your
dream
little
I
gift to
had.
me.
I thought this
She's
was like a dream I had. And she's like, oh no, you're so crazy. Don't you remember you drew that picture that like bound me to you and I love you forever?
You remember how everybody hated that picture except me who loved it? It's the best.
I actually wanted you to paint that.
Yeah.
And then she's like, this realm, I found it. It was like dying. Ugh. But they had a place for like our kid. Isn't that so sweet? Get up. Wake up.
He's been the best. And okay, so Gothos gave him the Finist to hold on to. And he's been holding on to it. You know, he's been doing such a good job, but I guess everybody found out. And Silchus made a bargain with the Azath Tower for his freedom. And in exchange, he had to seed a new Azath Tower here. So he did, and everything's fine. And everything's good. And let's be friends.
The realm's like literally rooted.
Yeah.
So cute. Home.
And she's like, so now baby, like baby, like baby, what do you want now?
Yeah.
And he's like, I found it already. Yeah. Onrack gets a happy ending. I mean, I don't know if it's ending for him, but it feels like Onrack actually gets some live. I love it. He finds his lady.
His family.
His whole family. It's so beautiful.
I like that this like beautiful moment that ends with Onrack, honestly, pretty romantic, and both of us I just see people being like, that was a sweet moment. You guys are making
you guys just ruined it with your comedy. You know what? I cried already in this episode, so give me my jokey jokes.
Look, I have to find the levity or I will perish.
That's right. There's also the other hilarious moment where Troll is like, oh, hey, Saren. And she's like, hey, beloved. And he's like, oh, what did you call me? She's like, yeah, we got to leave because I got to bury a sword at my house.
Yeah, and he's like, I've really wanted you to say that you wanted to bury that sword.
And then like in her mind, she's like, this guy has no idea. I am a mess.
I am such a piece of trash. I better lock it down, okay? Trap that man.
Yeah. And then we get this quick little moment with Rude, who's like, oh, I can tell mom died and something else died. My innocence. Which I'm like a making fun moment, but is also an amazing moment. Like as I read it, I was like, yes, but it's easy to
reading it felt weighty, but now that we're in the mode of being like, everybody's having a beat.
It just felt like this incredible crescendo to the book. And we have literally the longest chapter still to go, but everything is just pumping on all cylinders. I mean, I read these two chapters fury, like in such a whirlwind. It felt like, man, the ends of his books are so satisfying because
Yeah.
everything comes together, everything pays off. Really cool. And
Yeah.
we cut over to Quick Ben and Hedge, and he's like, "Hey, man, we got an Azath Tower now." He's like, "So I guess that's what Shadow Throne and Cotillion wanted, right?" He's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, guess what else they wanted? Access to Curval Demelaine, bro, or Starval Demelaine, excuse me."
It's like, oh, cool, and Azath Tower with what? Tons of portals. Wow,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. He's like, "Are we going into one? You bet we're going into one because Fiddler misses you." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
that's gonna be an awesome reunion
that's gonna
because
be
you're alive
excellent.
again."
You're alive again, and I mean, we're not even at the end of the book yet, but I'm like, predictions. We see an Azath
Yeah,
Tower again. When them assassins waking up? Where is Kalam? What
dude,
about those other ones whose
seriously.
name? My Ralik Nam.
Yeah, literally, who's been in an
those
Azath Tower for 6 books.
Get them out, okay? The assassins need their time again.
Yeah. Well, we have one last scene with Silchus, who is, thinking about like, I really did it. I really did what I said I was going to do. You're welcome, Azath. And he's like, you know what? You're welcome, Scabandari, too, because you didn't deserve that. Your soul gets to live on inside this Azath house.
He's going to be the guardian. He must be.
Interesting. And then he's like, oh, I have, I don't like this crippled god person, and I have one more thing to do.
Ooh.
Got to go to Letheris, where blood will run for realsies.
Rulad, you in for it, buddy boy.
Oh, sick. So wait a minute. You're telling me we have Karsa Orlong, Icarium, and freaking Silchus Ruin all coming at the unkillable Emperor. That's what this last chapter is going to be?
It's just going to zoom out. The last chapter is just going to be like that Star Wars style world explosion. We just see space. The world explodes. The final 3 books are in space.
Strap in. I cannot wait for next week.
I guess next chapter is a long chapter, but you think we get through that? You think we actually see the fight, or is that teased out?
100%. The one thing I have come to believe about these novels, which is very different from other fantasy series and long fantasy series in particular, is that each of these novels has an ending. They all have an ending. I thought the Panion Domin was going to be the thing that carries us through 10 novels.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like every single novel has an ending, and I think we're going to get a showdown with Rulad. I don't know if it's all going to be, obviously it's not all going to be resolved, but
or does it do like a left turn and it's going to be like Silchus lands and then he like looks at Rulad and he's like, give me that. And he's like, okay. And then just drops the sword. There's like,
oh, you think Silchus will get the sword?
No, I don't know. But like, I feel like, does it actually end in this explosive combat? I don't know. But I'm so excited to find out.
I want
whatever the conflict is, baby, I'm here for it.
The dangling plot thread right now is Karsa Orlong and Icarium, right? That's what's left. And a little bit, I mean, also Janeth and
Tehal
and Bug trapped. I mean, all that stuff, because we're going back to Letheris. Yeah, and I think that's that's really what's got to resolve
here. And Samar Dev, will they? Won't they? I gotta know. Yeah. Anyway, what a couple of chapters.
Exciting. What a couple! I mean, these 2 chapters were just. Chapter 22 for me is among the greatest chapters of a novel I've ever read, and it's up there with anything else in the series, and that means it's up there with anything else I've ever read in my life. Chapter 23 also incredible and awesome. I didn't pack the emotional wallop for me, even the death of all the troll stuff, like, that could have been, I think, emotional with Saren Pedak and Troll, and it was in a certain sense, but like I just come from this ravage of my heart, so it didn't quite pack as much of a punch, but it's so rad and so fun and so satisfying. All right, you gotta Favorite passage?
I have favorite passage. I have actually a bunch of small ones because like feel like
Oh, good.
the ones that struck my heart were like they were like too big for me to hold, and I know I couldn't get through reading them,
Well,
so I didn't highlight
yeah.
them. I have like one. Go ahead.
All I have. This is a weird one because I read this at such a pace and such a emotional state that I usually
forget to
stop
highlight.
Yes, I moved through and I got to the end. All I have is the Beak thing, and there's no way to read just a portion of it.
I know.
And I was like, do I read the whole thing? And I was like, maybe I would. And a part of me would love to. Part of me thinks I wouldn't be able to get through it without weeping. And part of me is like, it's too much to read. It's too long. So I'll let you do yours, and maybe I won't do any. I don't know.
Okay.
But that whole sequence is my favorite sequence.
That was my other choice. I was like, there's two ways I can go this week. That I felt too big to hold for me.
You have to read it in its entirety because it doesn't. You can't just.
There's no
pull from it. It's too beautiful. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I have a bunch of single sentences, one longer one with Korab. The sun would brook no obstacle in its singular observation of the Battle of Kusan-Tapi. As it rose, it burned away the clouds and drove spears of heat into the ground until the air steamed. I just love the idea of the sun observing this and sizzling everybody.
Yeah, so good.
Another single sentence. What is this? I think this is Tool having just realized Taka's dead and kneeling beside him. The raw grief of an Imas was like a bottomless well, one that could snatch the unsuspecting and send them plummeting down into unending darkness.
Love it. Love it.
And then my Kindle just taking forever to load. And then my last single sentence before a bit of a longer one that I have is the from Kilava near the end of the book. To love in absence is to float on ever still waters. No sudden currents, no treacherous tides, no possibility of drowning. You and I, Onrack, have floated for a very long time. Doing a very bad job reading. But
gorgeous.
Beautiful. We've loved each other for so long, but from afar. So we haven't witnessed this roller coaster of emotions that you can feel when you do get close to people.
Beautiful.
And then I am going to read this one instead of the Korab one, which I was just going to read his like internal monologue of being like, and there would be glory, there would be songs written about me, and that nobody will have ever seen a battle like this. And then somebody's like, put some of that crap down. Instead, I got to read this one because it's the epigraph of chapter 23. Which is,
I forgot to mention how it is amazing that you see Tuck die. He gave his poems, and then it's one of his poems. I know.
It's so good.
I wish I'd remembered to mention that in the context, but yes,
so this
so
is
great.
Tuck's poem that I will focus. I have seen the face of sorrow. She looks away in the distance, across all these bridges from whence I came, and those spans, trussed and arched, hold up our lives as we go back again. To how we thought then, to how we thought then. I have seen sorrow's face, but she is ever turned away, and her words leave me blind. Her eyes make me mute. I do not understand what she says to me. I do not know if to obey or to attempt a flood of tears. I have seen her face. She does not speak. She does not weep. She does not know me, for I am but a stone fitted in place on the bridge where she walks.
Beautiful. Bro.
Poetry, bro.
And it was such a neat moment to be like, take my poems. And it's like, here's one of his poems. They survived. They're here in the annals of history. You know,
I hope we see so many.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you so much for being with us. We're excited for next week to finish up this novel. Oh my goodness. I can't believe we only have one more chapter, Lana.
Unbelievable. Time has flown. Big book.
Time.
You know, it really shrinks how quickly the year goes by doing this book club.
Book good.
Book good, baby.
All right. We'll see you next week. Until then, I hope you can keep dancing.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the Book Club by